Hey guys, welcome back to Triple Threat, an Unrivaled podcast. And I'm your host, Abby Harvey, with my co host, Isaac Wolf. We're already on episode 5. We already had teams play each other again, so the season's moving pretty quickly. But the highlight of the weekend was definitely Philly. There was 2 games, and they broke so many records. They had 21,490 fans, which is the highest attended professional women's basketball game in history. And there was
Regular season,
basketball.
yep.
Yep. So that was fun. Philly was definitely a cool experience to watch.
On top of that, it's the highest attended event in the arena's history,
Yeah. Crazy how
which
many
is impressive
people.
because Philadelphia 76ers fans are some of the most passionate in the league.
Yeah. Crazy good night for women's basketball. So only 2 games were played there, then the rest headed back to Miami, but lots of good basketball this weekend. And it started out with Breeze and Phantom. So the Breeze ended up winning, or the Breeze won the first time they played 69 to 62. And then this game, the Phantom got back and won 71-68. Kelsey Plum hit the game winner. This game was back and forth for the whole time, pretty much. And the Breeze tried to make a late run in the fourth, but it was a little too late. I think Rakia Jackson had a great game. She kind of popped off, but I think the Phantom just shot the three so well that the Breeze weren't really able to come back. It was kind of another game where the Breeze weren't really able to handle the ball very well. They had 11 turnovers, which kind of seems to be a trend for them sometimes, but it's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, when you're that young of a team, obviously Paige has the ball in her hands all the time, and so high volume usually leads to a higher turnover percentage. I liked early on how the Breeze used Cameron Brink as kind of like a playmaking hub at the elbow. I thought that was very interesting to get her involved in that way. She had a good game, 13 points, 9 rebounds. But the Phantoms' best offense was their, or no, excuse me, not the Phantom. The Breeze's best offense was the pick and roll, as it usually is, and they even started setting double screens in kind of like a 77 type action after Plum started anticipating the screens better. I felt like she did a good job of being physical with Paige, more physical with her as the game went on. Paige just, she makes tough shots. That's what she does. And the Breeze made a comeback at the start of the fourth quarter to kind of make it a game. It was an 11-4 run to tie it at 64. Aaliyah Boston hit a big three off the dribble to break
Yeah,
the
she
tie.
did.
Off the dribble was interesting. Usually she's catch and shoot, but then the Phantom forced a shot clock violation, got a number of offensive rebounds late, and they just made winning plays down the stretch. And on that last scramble, they go to the pick and roll with Plum and Boston. Plum gets the switch with because the defense not set off the offensive rebound. Brink is in heavy drop coverage, and Plum just goes right by her for the game-winning layup. So all around fun game, and I was impressed. Even though Paige was still really efficient, 9 of 13, I think Plum did a good job being physical with her.
Yeah, and it was another game where Phantom, and we talked about it last week, but they had a lot of girls in double figures with AB 8 with 18, Tiffany Hayes with 15. Natasha Codd only had 2, but Kiki had 14. So another good game of spreading out that offense. Then the big game of the weekend was Rose and Looter Owls, where the Looter Owls won 85 to 75. And last time they played, Rose won 80 to 60. So definitely crazy turn of events. But the big storyline was definitely Marina Mabrey had
Mhm.
47, set an unrivaled record of points and threes. She had 10 3-pointers. This game was insane.
Yeah, I mean, that's about the only way. We were talking about this a little bit before we got on, because I'm thinking, Paige is kind of the girl who can score at a really high volume and a really efficient clip, but I don't think she's ever going to touch around where Mabry touched because Paige's shot diet is heavy in the mid range,
Mhm.
and you basically have to put up. She was what, 10 of 15. Mabry was 10 of 15 from three. You
Yeah.
basically have to put up that kind of volume from outside in this shorter, 28-minute format, or
Mhm.
I guess 21 minutes and then an untimed fourth quarter. But yeah, 27 in the first quarter alone. She had 16 straight at one point,
Yeah.
and it was just a tough array of shots. I mean, she had a couple of catch and shoot threes, a couple of deep ones. There was one she pulled from basically half court. Now
Uh-huh.
the court's condensed, so it just looks kind of cool because you're pulling from the logo. It's not as far as you think, but still, she had one where she just went tween tween and pulled it right away. I mean, she's got a lightning quick release.
Mhm.
And then she had that kind of spin, one-legged fadeaway in the mid-range, runner in the lane. So she was getting it done from outside and inside and finished with 47. And I mean, there's no better feeling when you're playing the game of basketball and you just know you can't miss. And that's kind of the mode she was in. There are times when you let that thing go off your hands and you know it's good, and it doesn't matter where you're pulling from on the next possession. You're feeling it, and it's the best feeling in basketball, and that's definitely how she was operating, especially in that first quarter when she had that big stretch of just three after three after three, and it was tough shot after tough shot after tough shot. And so that's just as a basketball player myself, I know I know the feeling, and that's sometimes you don't get it as much as you'd like, but when it comes, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, the 16 straight were that was crazy. And Philly was so loud, especially with that big of a crowd. And
Hmm.
that was just such a fun game to watch.
Yeah, that arena setup was just interesting because I watch 76ers games,
Mhm.
semi-frequently, and seeing like they have the court set up in the middle, but at the same time there's a lot more space on the ends. So it was just the weird visual of seeing the small court in the, NBA
Mhm.
arena was interesting.
Another shout out for this game, obviously, because there was some other players on the court. Um, Temi Fagbenle stepped up in absence of Aaliyah Edwards. I think she played really good. She had 15 points and 12 rebounds, so had a double double.
Hmm.
So that was really good. With I don't know. My thought was they're playing the Rose and they didn't have Aaliyah Edwards, and the Lunar Owls have been struggling, but Temi Fagbenle stepped up, and then obviously Marina Mabrey almost at 50. So that makes it pretty easy.
Yeah.
So then everyone headed back to Miami. We
Hmm.
had a Hive and Mist game. Mist won and swept them on the season. So won the first game 72 to 56, and then won this game 82 to 69. Arike had another good game. So I feel like she's kind of getting the hang of it. She had 18 points. And I don't know. This game was kind of fun to see just the way the Mist were continuing to come together. I feel like this is a topic of conversation for us week to week, how the Mist are kind of figuring things out. But on the Hive, this was, I feel like, one of Kelsey Mitchell's games that I wouldn't call it a breakout game because I think she's going to have higher than 25 points. But for her, she
But to
hasn't
this
seen,
point, mhm.
yeah, for sure. Like she hasn't seen the success in this league that we thought she was going to. But I think this game is going to get her going, especially from three. She was 5 of 7. So I think the Hive could see some success coming up with Kelsey Mitchell trying to get things rolling, but they were so reliant on her. But honestly, the Mist really didn't have an answer for her, and they talked about that during their timeouts. So they just have an answer for everything else, I guess.
Yeah, Monique Billings, I think, has come along strong as
Mhm.
well. She had 14 and 14 in this one, but I want to talk about Lee Yuru a little bit. I love Lee Yuru, but the Hive picked on her defensively in this one. I mean, they got her in action with Mitchell and got her one-on-one with Kelsey in a number of switches, and that was just a blow by or just kind of get to your bag and pull up, kind of get her on her heels defensively. Billings drove right through her. I mean, and that really got the Hive back in the game at one point. But Yuru was one of two missed players with a negative plus minus. Ironically, the other one was Alicia Gray. She was a -8, but Yuru was a -3. Plus minus can be kind of a fishy stat sometimes, but that's definitely she's a matchup dependent player in this league, and she was kind of exposed in this one. 9 points, three or four offensively, but on defense, she can be a liability.
I think this game the Mist were also doing a lot of subs because obviously Kelsey Mitchell's going to play fast, but the Mist also wanted to play fast, and they would be subbing out 3 in 3 out. They did it quite a few times, and that just kept everyone so fresh because the Hive will rely on not that many other. I mean, Sanaya Rivers comes in sometimes. She added 10 points. Natisha Heidemann added 3, but it's really the other 3 that they leave out there for quite a bit of time. And the Mist, as soon as you get the 3 tired that are on the court, the next 3 come in, and so they're able to keep that fast pace.
Yeah.
Next game, we had Lace's Vinyl. Vinyl actually won this game 70 to 63. And Lace has actually had complete control at the beginning of the game. Like I thought
Yes.
this game
Yes.
was gonna they were gonna run away with it.
Yeah. I
Final
mean,
just yeah.
I would say because the Vinyl had lost three in a row coming into this one,
Mhm.
and they didn't score for the first 3.5 minutes.
Yeah.
It looked like it was going to be more of the same. But you know who brought them back? You know, they had six turnovers in the first 5 minutes. Laces were in control. But you know who brought them back? It was Brittany Griner.
Hmm.
And we've talked about her as sort of a matchup dependent player in this league as well, similar to Yuru, but obviously she's better than Yuru and bigger. But she slowed down the game. And in this game, that was an advantage. It felt like the Laces were running and gunning early, and the Vinyl did a good job of finding Reiner, and she converted. The Laces don't have a lot of size either. Naz Hillman's their tallest player at 6'2", so the Vinyl took advantage of that. Ray Burrell set the tone to start the second half. She played really well. And the Laces, did a good job of forcing Howard to defer. She had kind of her off night, 4 of 11, just 10 points. Griner had 16 and Burrell had 22. Those two combined for 38. They answered the call when Howard couldn't step up. And so I thought this was actually a really impressive all-around performance from the Vinyl, using these matchups to their advantages. Um, and so, yeah, I guess the Lace's weakness maybe is size when it comes down to, you're playing the biggest girl in the league. But so that's kind of an extreme. But at the same time, I was very impressed with the way the Vinyl played in this one, and were
Yeah.
smart.
And at the beginning, they were talking about, and it was kind of obvious, they talked about how the Vinyl didn't score for the first 3 minutes of the game, but the Laces guard defense I mean, one of the best in the league. They have some of the best defenders. So I think one on one, when it comes down to it, someone on the Laces might maybe come away with it, but they're so good with their guard defense. But like you mentioned, the size, they don't really have it. So they didn't really have an answer for a
Hmm.
Ray Burrell or especially a Brittany Griner. Brittany
Yeah.
Griner was I mean, she wasn't really going to be able to be stopped, especially if Knots Hillman is the best the Laces have.
Hmm.
Then we had a Phantom Lunar Owls game. Lunar Owls did not keep up their hot hand that they had in Philly, but Phantom ended up winning, so they went 2-0 on the weekend. Aaliyah Boston had the game winner. They won 59-49. It was kind of both teams had two leading scorers with 18 points. The Lunar Owls was Skylar Diggins and Marina Mabrey, and then the Phantom was AB and Kelsey Plum. But the Lunar Owls were still missing Aaliyah Edwards, which is going to hurt
Yes.
them even more when
Hmm.
Marina Mabrey isn't going to drop 50. So,
Yeah, it was not her night. This night,
no.
she finished with 18 and 10. She had a double double. I don't want to say it was a bad game. It was just incredibly inefficient. 8 of 24, 1 of 12 from three. So the shooting touch was not there. This was not the greatest offensive game on either side. Obviously, the teams combined for 108 points. But I felt like the Owls, they came ready to play. Diggins was playing well initially to start the game, and then the Phantom were struggling until they got out in transition, which I felt like was their best offense in this one. Cloud was pretty good in the pick and roll with Boston. She had 5 assists. Kelsey Plum added 7 assists as well. We've talked about that, how that's the Phantom's best offense every night, typically. But the fourth quarter was a defensive clinic from them as they held the Lunar Owls to just 2 points in that final period.
Yeah, Aaliyah Boston with another double double. I think this league is making her. She's one of the players who's elevating her game so much in this 3-on-3 league that I think when we translate back to the W, that we're really going to see how well her basketball game is able to develop.
Yeah.
Had the Breeze and the Rose next. This game, this game was another one that was split. So the first time they played, Rose ended up winning 73-69, but this time Breeze kind of put it to them. They won 81-56, and Paige had a great game. She had 32 points, and Rakia Jackson another great game with 20, and Malonga added 18. So Cameron Brink's still out, so I was a little bit worried about, or she was out with this game and Ari McDonald, so they had to add in Haley Jones, which was cool because Haley and Paige play together in Dallas, but I was a little worried going into this game with two of these Breeze girls out, but they got the job done.
Yeah, Paige is just a tough shot maker. She has elite touch at all three levels. And she's gotten a lot. The biggest thing I've noticed, I think, from watching her this Unrivaled season is how much stronger she's gotten
Mhm.
since coming into the W. I felt like physicality kind of bothered her initially. I don't want to say she got thrown around when she was first in the league, but she definitely got bumped off her spots. And now it feels like she's using physicality to get to her spots, and she's finishing through contact, not just in the paint, but on jumpers too. The Breeze in this one really just got whatever they wanted offensively. When I'm watching Paige, she reminds me kind of how Shea Gilgeous-Alexander operates. And what I mean by that is she gets to her spots, she elevates, she uses the mid-range at a very high rate, efficient rate. She's a good outside shooter, slippery driving to the basket, gets to the free throw line. She's second in the league in free throw attempts per game at 3.1. Shakira Austin is number one at 3.2. So she's
Which is
right there.
way different than how she's played before because she used to
Yes.
never see the free throw line.
Yeah, she's very jumper heavy. And I also think that speaks again to the physicality of her
Mhm.
being more confident in her body to get contact and finish through contact, finish in the lane, all that sort of stuff. Her value to self-create at this level of efficiency is so valuable in this league. She's a
Mhm.
willing passer. She's a good passer too. You saw it on that final play where she just threw it over the top when, basically full court when Malonga had hole sealed on the inside. That was the game-winning layup there, but she's just methodical in her pick and roll attack, and I think I think, maybe my hot take is she like this isn't like for next week per se, but that she ends the season leading unrivaled in points per game.
Yeah, I can see that. She added one thing I wanted to point out was Paige alone had 11 assists, and the Rose only had nine as a team, which is crazy, especially, they're playing Chelsea Gray, who had six, but she had a low game, only had 11 points, wasn't very efficient, shot 29%. So it was just an off game for the Rose, but that's what happens when they put a lot on Chelsea Gray. But Shakira Austin has been stepping up lately. She had 21 and seven rebounds. Got the vinyl and Hive.
Monday's slate. Yep.
Yep.
This was a good competitive basketball game. I didn't really take a whole lot away from it, other than I was happy with Sanaya Citron. She had 32. She did everything she could. I thought on that final play, I thought she was in legal guarding position. I didn't see a foul there. Howard initiated the contact. I felt like Citron stood her ground, remained vertical, didn't leave the ground. Howard was just smart to fall down and kind of embellish the contact, get the call. But I felt like Citron was in good legal guarding position there. Vinyl had five of their six in double figures, and Courtney Williams had eight, so it was basically everyone in double figures. But Billings again, we mentioned her earlier, 23 and 15. So she's coming along really strong here as well. Kelsey Mitchell had 16. No bench points from the Hive. That kind of hurts.
Yep, for sure. Especially with the speed that Kelsey and Sonia Citron like to play at. I don't know. It just seems like that's not, if you're going to add zero from the bench, you can't just leave those girls out there and not have any offense going. But I liked the way the played this weekend. They had a 2-0 weekend, and they were starting to fall down in standings and Unrivaled, and only six of the eight teams make it. So they
Mhm.
definitely stepped up this weekend. I think they got some things rolling.
Final game of the weekend was the Laces Miss game. This is where my hot take, if you want to call it, was, or this is more of what I wanted to see. I wanted to see Stewie take over, lead the Miss to a win over in the battle of the top dogs, but it
Mhm.
wasn't her greatest game. She was kind of underwhelming. 16 points, 9 rebounds, 6 of 14 from the floor, 2 of 6 from three. Both teams 6-2 coming into this one. The Laces were looking for a bounce back win after, the loss to the Vinyl earlier in the weekend, and they came ready to play. Everybody was getting involved. They started out 11-2, and so that kind of made the Mist play from behind pretty much the whole game. Eventually, I think Enrique hit a three. They took a 55-54 lead, something like that, in the third quarter, but Laces put it together at the end. Alyssa Thomas finally asserted her will offensively.
Yeah,
20
finally.
points, finally. I was so happy to see Thomas go to work in this one. 9 of 11 from the floor, 11 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 steals. So a great all around game. Um, but yeah.
I think this game would be obviously a very different story. One player for the Mist who's been consistent this whole time, who kind of is very quiet, was Alicia Gray. She's been playing so well up to this point, and I think it's a very different outcome if she had more than seven, obviously. But if she's playing the way she played last weekend or even the game before, then I think this game turns out a little bit differently. But honestly, Lace's got it done. And Alyssa Thomas finally played how she usually plays.
Hmm.
But another great bench production for the Laces and the
Hmm.
way they're able to rely on Naz Hillman and Maddie Seegers to come in and get them. They got 19 points combined, so big advantage. Want to get on? So both of our hot takes were wrong.
Correct.
We've been doing so well up into that point, but that was bad.
Yeah, yeah, we started off pretty hot. Now we've cooled off.
Yeah. All right. You want to start with your player of the weekend?
Yeah, and I think I wanted to. I honestly thought about Billings just because of the numbers she put up. But I have to give it to Mabry because the 47 ball was just that outstanding. She even with the horrendous shooting in the second game, she still had a double double and she averaged 32 and a half points per game over the two games.
Yeah.
So, one night she was hot, the other night she was not, but I just felt like the 47 points, the record-breaking performance was worthy of being standout player of the weekend.
Yeah. Mine is actually going to Ray Burrell.
I like it. I like it.
She helped Final go 2-0. But what I thought was interesting about her is she hadn't been in the starting lineup this whole time leading up to this weekend. And the Vinyl needed something to change because they weren't doing very hot. So they instead bring Courtney Williams off the bench, start Ray Burrell, and immediately the Vinyl saw success in the way she was able to bring. Versus the Laces, she had 22 points and she had 5 steals that game also. And then against the Hive, she had 18 points and 3 rebounds. The leading scorer for the Vinyl in both games. And I just think that that's exactly what the Vinyl needed to change. And ended the weekend 2-0. I think now they're tied for fifth with the Rose. And before this weekend, they were tied for sixth or seventh or something like that. So moving up.
How about your favorite play of the weekend?
So my favorite play of the weekend was Rakia Jackson. So it was against the Rose. Shakira Austin was guarding her, I think. She drove baseline, like went to pass out one way. I don't even know how to explain it. It happened so fast, but then she spun around and then went up with a reverse layup. It was so
Mm.
cool to watch. They replayed it so many times. And as soon as I saw it, I was like, that is my favorite play of the weekend. I don't even care anything else. But I don't know. It was just so that she like pretty much faked Shakira Austin out like 3 times and then still spun and threw it up. Like, it didn't even look like she was looking, but she had 20 points that game. So it was a cool bucket.
Yeah. I'll stay on the Mabry topic because those heat checks were just insane. Another play I considered for this was Griner's chase down block on Billings in I believe it was the Vinyl second game of the weekend, but the Vinyl Hive game. And she just ran full court. Loki was behind the play, but was long enough to reach and swat it off the backboard on the layup attempt. But specifically for Mabry, the one where she goes between her legs twice and just pulls it right away. Like she had a couple catch and shoot earlier to get her going, then she had a deeper one, and then when you start going off the dribble, that's when you know you've got a rhythm. So the lightning quick release after going between her legs was that's when you knew she was on one.
Yeah. She had so many, like, you could pick any of her buckets for a favorite play, honestly. She had
True.
such a great game.
That stretch.
All right. Hot take for next weekend. What do you got?
The Rose bounce back and go 2-0. They are so they started out 3-0, right?
Yep.
And all those games were without Kalia Copper.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in the 6 games Copper's been back, they're 1-5,
T.
which is very, very interesting. And I don't know if that's a chemistry issue. I don't know if that's, something they need to figure out defensively or if they're still, getting adjusted to her playing. But they have 2 chances because the schedule's a little wonky this weekend. Not every team plays twice, but the Rose do. So Rose will play the Vinyl and the Mist. The Mist on Monday will be a big one for them, but I feel like Chelsea Gray is going to get things in line this weekend, and I want to see them kind of bounce back because they've been. I mean, they got embarrassed this weekend. That's all I can say. They dropped to they lost to the Lunar Owls, and then the Breeze beat them by 26-25. So
Yeah, tough weekend. All right, my hot take, which hurts because I really love the Breeze, but my hot take is the Hive are going to get their third win against the
okay,
Breeze because we had a game where Citron had 32. We had another game where Kelsey had 25, and then Billings has been doing good. And I think there's a game coming where all three of those are working together, and
I like it.
not one of them is going to have an off game or one of them's going to have an on game. I think
Hmm.
all three of those girls are going to come together. They're going to get some bench points, hopefully. We can hope. And they're going to beat the Breeze. And that's on Friday. So one of the first games.
All right.
I'm excited for that game because I feel like the Hive are individually starting to figure it out. So they'll come
Hmm.
together.
Yeah.
So after this weekend, we had two teams go 2-0. Phantom, who are now tied for second with the Mist at 6-3. And then Vinyl again had 2-0 weekend and now are tied with the Rose at 4-5. Hive and Lunar Owls both in last at 2-7, and then the Breeze are right in the middle at 5-4. Lace is still at the front at 7-2. Got a little bit of a weird schedule coming up because of the Super Bowl,
Yes.
but we'll have, like you mentioned, some teams will play two games. Some teams will actually play this week's games after the one-on-one tournament. So,
Yeah, not until the 17th to like 2 weeks from today.
yeah, we'll have the Hive and Breeze, and then the Lunar Owls and Laces on Friday, the 6th. And then on the 7th, Saturday, we'll have Rose and Vinyl, and then Phantom and Mist, and then the Super Bowl. So, no Unrivaled. So then on Monday, the 9th, we'll have Vinyl and Phantom and Rose and Mist. And then the one-on-one tournament starts 2 days later. So we have a quick turnaround, but I'm excited. We'll talk
Uh,
all things one-on-one next weekend,
oh yes.
next
Yep.
episode. But the little ranking pools came out, I think this morning or last night, where fans can vote. And so it'll seed each little pool of players. So it'll be interesting to see what seed everyone comes away with. And then we'll get our picks in. But then
Yep.
right after the one-on-one tournament, so that goes Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, then there's that extra game that would have been played on Super Bowl Sunday. And it's almost postseason after that. They only got like a week and a half left after that.
Yeah, there's 2 weekends worth of games and then or yeah, weekend and a half.
Crazy. But this weekend was fun. I love when there's big games, especially Unrivaled moving to, because obviously Unrivaled in Miami is super fun and it's a great
Mhm.
experience for them. But Sephora Arena is smaller. So getting to
Very
see
small.
Unrivaled on that scale and how many people are actually supporting women's basketball in this
Right.
league was so awesome.
Yeah, that's a huge win for the WNBA, Unrivaled, and women's sports in general.
Yeah, for sure. All right. That's all we got for episode 5. Thanks for tuning in to Triple Threat. I'm your host, Abby Harvey, with my co host, Isaac Wolf, and we'll see you next week.